YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with another episode of Overreaction Monday. Just yesterday, we had Sunday's action of NFL Week 14. So, taking some of your guys' statements you sent on Twitter, and we're going to react to them, see if they're overreactions, see if they're facts or fair statements like we do every single week here. If you want to get more involved, follow our Twitter. We got constant NFL talk on there as well, always talking during live games. Link down below for that, as well as the Instagram, podcast, Patreon. A bunch of bonus NFL content every single week on that Patreon. And you'll find the Sided app down below as well. We have a page on there. Follow us. You debate football. We always are posting debates, and then you can win Amazon gift cards. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Full NFL coverage all week, covering every single game. And then in the offseason, we even have free agency and NFL draft coverage. So please subscribe. Be much appreciated. The first one from Jake Roberts. Mahomes is not the MVP. I'm going to call this, that's tough, but I'm going to call it an overreaction. You know, I'm not saying he for sure is the MVP and everyone thinks he needs to be the MVP. You definitely can make the case for a couple other guys. And then that brings us to on Sided this week. I'm going to put a link in the comments and description. You can go to this poll, and I just posted this. It's you guys vote for who you think the MVP should be. So, did Patrick Mahomes hurt himself, with that 3-interception game, even though they still won it? Did Aaron Rodgers kind of pass him up? Did Derrick Henry's running wild? Josh Allen's balling right now. Russell Wilson was probably the leader at one point. Is he getting back there? You can click other, and you can comment with that. But you click one here. I think it's going to be I'm guessing you guys will vote. I don't know, actually, but I'm guessing you guys will vote for Mahomes and Rodgers the most. Between Derrick Henry, I'm not giving you my actual pick here. Derrick Henry is fresh off a ridiculous performance. So let me just, for an example, let me click Derrick Henry and then defend your side. You click it, you defend your side, and you give, just like you do in the comments here on YouTube, you post why. And then if you get enough likes on your post, you can earn these points to the leaderboard. You can earn points and then potentially win the Amazon gift cards, which a bunch are given out. First place gets $25, second place gets $10, and third through 10th gets $5. Any that we win, we've won a couple. Any that we win, we will give away as well. So we're going to be giving those away here in the next week or so. So you, by playing along, you help us out. You help yourself out here. So pretty cool. Check it out. Some links down below, and you guys, can get involved here. We much appreciate it. But I think this is an overreaction because you can't say just because of one game, because of that game that he won, that he still had some big time throws in, that he's just not the MVP. Like, he can't be. That's the way I took it. It definitely opens up more of a discussion. Why I posted that poll on Sided. I think it's a good time because it opens up more of a discussion. I think more guys are involved in that conversation. Derrick Henry, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, they're closer to Patrick Mahomes than they were a week ago. So that's why it's an interesting debate. I think it's an overreaction just to say he's not the MVP because of that one game. But a lot of great players in the NFL. You can't really have one of those, off games, I suppose, if you want to win it. But Mahomes has done plenty to be deserving of that title, but so is a lot of other guys as well. Next, from Raider Nation, Steelers are frauds. Man, maybe it's a little harsh, but I think it's fair to think this. And I think people will make the mistake of seeing somebody saying they're frauds. That means you think they're bad. Like, they're not bad. They're a pretty damn good team still. The offense, I don't know what to think of them right now. They got to get things going. They're pretty they're very specifically one-dimensional on what type of passing game they need to run to be successful. They're restricted is the best way to put it. So that's tough. Very good defense still. They're a little beat up, especially on the defensive side in the Bills game, so that wasn't their full-strength defense. But frauds, to me, frauds are, they kind of lied to us a little bit. They aren't who we thought they were, I guess. And that's the case. But for really good teams like Steelers, they were maybe the best in football for a good stretch during the season. I guess it's easy to become frauds, but I don't know if they're as good as their record shows right now, and I think it's not because of their defense. I think it's because their offense, they're not getting the job done running the ball. They can't really get things going downfield. Teams are starting to be able to game plan for them. That's the key thing. They're really the same team, but it doesn't look like it just because the opposing team is figuring out ways to successfully game plan for them. They're because they're not really as good. They aren't who we thought they were. They aren't who we thought they were. That's just really how to explain the Steelers. So it's fair to kind of think that. I think it's different if you say they're bad. They're actually not good like we thought. That would be an overreaction. I don't think anybody's saying that, though. I think some people think people are saying that. I don't think anybody's saying that. Next, we got from Kareem Hunt, Pro Bowl kicker. Okay. Raiders aren't playoff contenders after a horrible stretch. They got blown out by the Colts and Falcons, barely beat the Jets. This is a good one. This is kind of a hot topic, too, because the Raiders, like you mentioned, the stretch hasn't been too good. This is an interesting one because I think most people would definitely agree with this, but I'm going to call it an overreaction because they might be pretender. They might be frauds as well. They might not be who we thought they were at one point. They're not as good as we once thought they were. I don't think they're going to be a playoff run contender. I don't even have them in the playoffs right now. But they could make the playoffs. It's tough to say they aren't playoff contenders. They're out. They're done. Can't really say that. So that's an overreaction. But if the statement was they're maybe not as good as they were a few weeks ago, they're not as good as we once thought. They aren't going to go anywhere if they do make the playoffs. I actually think all those are pretty much facts. So that would be a little different. Maybe he meant that in terms. Some people view it differently. Playoff contenders could mean just make the playoffs, could do something in the playoffs, win a game. Obviously, Super Bowl contenders would be said differently, and they're obviously not that. Only a handful of teams are. But yeah, I think it's an overreaction to say they can't make the playoffs, which is almost said here a little bit. Moving on to the next one, though, from Ethan. Phillip Rivers, a top 10 quarterback going into Week 15. So basically based on this year right now, the top 10 quarterbacks, what he's saying. In the recapping the Colts-Raiders game, I talked about how I love Phillip Rivers' game against the Raiders. I thought that maybe not statistically, but I thought that was his best game of the year. Top of my head, he's had some good ones, but just the way he was moving in and out of the pocket, throwing on the run, just perfectly placed balls downfield, not just relying on the small ball. Even though the run game did open things up for him, make it a little easier, but that goes for almost every system for the most part. So I really liked what I saw from Phillip Rivers. It feels like, we don't know for sure, it feels like he's getting better as the season goes on, which could be surprising or not surprising, depending on how you look at it. It'd be surprising because his age, and he definitely declined from 2 years ago to last year big time. So it's kind of surprising to see him kind of get better. But at the same time, first year on the Colts in the system. So when you could kind of play both sides there, debate both sides. But top 10 is a little much for me. Again, I loved his game last week. I think it's a little overreaction. I think it's an overreaction, too, because I do think, and it happens to every fan base, not just like the Colts fan base. Every fan base does this. Some maybe more than others, but I have noticed, the weeks they lose, weeks maybe he has a turnover, doesn't do enough, everyone's talking about, all right, who are we getting quarterback next year? Is Eason going to be the quarterback? Who are we drafting one? Are we trading for Carson Wentz? Are we signing this guy, that guy? And then when they win, it's like, all right, Phillip Rivers is our guy. Like, he's really good. So, and I understand it, but it kind of ends up making this look more like an overreaction when things like this come out. But he did play very well last week. He played easily like a top 10, no question, this last week against the Raiders here in Week 14. But and he could play like it in Week 15. It's just tough to call him a top 10 quarterback at this stage. But he's playing well. He's definitely playing well. Next, from Alfie Bailey, the Rams should be considered the favorites to come out of the NFC. This is definitely a fair statement. It's a tough one too because the Rams are so back and forth. I think I overreact from the Rams. I don't know if I do though. That's why it's crazy because there's one week where I'm like, every time they win, I feel like I like the Rams, man. I still like the team though. Even when they lose, it's a very complete team. I think they're on their way to being the best defense of this year. I think they could pass the Steelers. And the offense, it feels like when they absolutely need to move the ball and score, they can do it. That's what I like about it. I think it's a very balanced team, like I said. So I like the Rams. I'm not going to change my mind on that if they lose to the Niners one week like they did. They did it twice. For some reason, that's just a bad matchup. But at the same time, they are kind of back and forth. Like you get a lot of us getting hyped on them, and they kind of get a little disappointed the next week, a little underwhelmed by them. So it is kind of back and forth. So I don't know if they should be I don't know if they could be considered that's the team. I do think it's fair to think that though. I do think it's fair. I already don't remember if I had that pop up. I think I did. We're popping up real quick again. I think it's fair to think that. I think you can debate the Packers. The Saints kind of let everyone down this past week, but you probably can have a case for them as well. But I don't know if everybody kind of needs to think this. I think you can debate, a couple teams there, obviously. Tyler Andreas, Hassan Reddick is a top 10 edge rusher. He had 5 sacks, which is ridiculous in a single game against the Giants. Got a lot of potential because he's barely been at the position in his NFL career. Remember, the Cardinals drafted him from Temple. I graded him as edge rusher. I think pretty much the whole planet pretty much did. And they moved him to inside linebacker where he kind of identified himself as a bust, but it really wasn't his fault because they're playing a lot of position. And now this is the first year full-time starting at the edge rush position, which that's what he is. That's what he is. And he's playing pretty well. Got 10 sacks, 5 sacks in the game. So he's playing extremely well, and he actually has upside for the reasons I just explained. But I do think it's an overreaction. There's so many good edge rushers in the NFL, and we don't have a big enough sample size to say this, and I think it would be kind of basing it off of one game. But he's looking promising. But there's just so many good edge rushers. There's so many of them. So, yeah, I hope to continue to see him playing the right position and succeeding at it, but top 10's a little much there. Keep pounding picks. Bills are the only AFC champ threat to the Chiefs. So the only threat to the Chiefs in, to beat them in the playoffs perhaps is the Bills would be the statement. And I would say overreaction. I think if you came out here and said the Bills are the best, besides the Chiefs, they're the most likely to beat the Chiefs, I might be on board with that. But they're not the only one. The Chiefs are still the favorite, but who could be a threat? The Bills could be a threat. Getting better on both sides of the ball, it feels like. Being more consistent on offense, getting better on defense. The Titans, the Chiefs would be the favorite over the Titans once again, but we all know that it'd be a shootout. It'd be an absolute shootout, and in those shootouts, just one mistake or one wild play could determine a winner in a shootout. Chiefs would be the favorites, but Titans, with their ability to score the way they do, perhaps. And you look at the Colts. The Colts play pretty solid defense, and their offense is getting better. So they could be a little sneaky for the Chiefs as well. But yeah, I'd probably put the Bills at the top, but I don't think they're the only team there. And what happens if the Chiefs would see the Steelers defense? You never know. And then the Browns actually could match up well. I'm not saying the Browns would beat them, but the Browns actually, I think, match up pretty well with them. And again, it doesn't mean I think they're the favorites or anything like that. But, I think the Browns, the way they're built, their game plan, is built to beat the better teams, perhaps, like the Chiefs, even though, again, wouldn't say they would be the favorites or I would predict them to beat them. But, yeah, so my point is that, I don't think the Bills are the only team there. From Peter, Chase Young is the clear defensive rookie of the year. I'm going to say that's an overreaction. I think he could be the leader, the front runner right now after the last couple of weeks. He's really been heating up. We kind of predicted that to happen because he wasn't really at the top most of the year, but now he's getting up there. But there's just so many other guys. Antoine Winfield Jr.'s balling still. Jeremy Chin's playing extremely well. There's a few guys we can go down the list. We'll bring back our rookie power rankings this week, see what the changes, see who's at the top. But I think Chase Young is probably on top. We'll see. But I don't think he's clear. I don't think he's the clear guy. But in terms of, it's interesting but in terms of how I think they'll vote, I would be surprised if he didn't win. I think they're going to, they favor the bigger names a little bit. Not that he shouldn't win at all. I'm not really saying that at all. But in my opinion, I don't think he's really clear. I don't know if anybody should think he's clear. You can definitely think he's the front runner and he should win. Definitely can think that. But yeah, we'll see how these rookies play the rest of the way. For McLaurin Stan, Washington is a QB away from being a serious contender. Interesting to think about because they can't really get any offense going. When they do, they're a dangerous team. This defense is very dangerous. One of the most important things in football is pressure, and they get it from the interior, from the outside. The defensive front's ridiculous. The back end is a bunch of playmakers. They're well coached on defense. I think if Washington's a QB away. Usually when you say that, it's like a good quarterback, finding a good quarterback. I think it'd be it depends on what we mean by contender, too, like Super Bowl contender, which I kind of get the feeling serious contender. If we're talking Super Bowl contender, like next year, I'd say an overreaction, or like, right now, I mean, Washington having a QB. I'd say an overreaction because I think they probably need another piece on offensive line. They definitely need another receiver. To being a serious, Super Bowl contender, I think they can do some damage in the playoffs. So if we're talking about a playoff run contender, if they just got a good quarterback that can stretch, push the ball downfield, I'm actually going to say fact, so that's quite the opposite there. But I think they can make a run in the playoffs. But, if they found that quarterback and they added another receiver, they added maybe another offensive lineman or two, they're a couple of years, 2 years away from being a serious Super. I actually think a Super Bowl contender, because that defense is only going to get better. That pass rush is going to be a factor, huge factor. So definitely something interesting to think about there. From Kurt Wall, Washington football team has the best front four in the entire NFL. It's a good one. It's definitely debatable. There's some other teams you can throw in there. I'm trying to think of teams in my head, but like the Rams come up, but on paper, other guys are really good. They're playing better than expected, but you consider them because Aaron Donald kind of carries the load a little bit. And you got some other teams that are playing at a very high level. Really the top defensive football. Steelers is a big one to look at. Then you can throw the Bears in there. You can throw the Saints in there. Teams like that. Just top of my head, but I think it's definitely fair to think. I think, for me, probably Steelers or Washington football team. I like how complete they are. Those teams are. They're so complete across the board. It's not just the T.J. Watts or the Chase Youngs. You look at the inside. Daron Payne's a very good nose tackle. Both of them got a complete defensive front there. Washington runs a 4-3. Steelers run a 3-4, but those are the four guys that get after the quarterbacks, and I think you compare the two at the top of the NFL. Moving on from Jude Rayburn, Carson Wentz will never start another game for the Eagles. Definitely a hot topic after Jalen Hurts gets his first start and first win against probably one of the better teams they played all season. Pretty wild, and he clearly looked better, was more efficient, effective than Carson Wentz. So is Jalen Hurts just the guy going forward? That's the debate. I think it's definitely could be true. This definitely could be true. It could end up being true. I do think, even if it does, I think at this time, I still think it's an overreaction to say it because we're fresh off one game. I am confident for this year that Hurts is better than Carson Wentz, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Carson Wentz starting week one next year against the Eagles. I think you can definitely debate if in a perfect offense, in a perfect world where mainly the offensive line. Carson Wentz is a guy that needs a great offensive line. He needs it. The difference of his talent with and without a great offense line is pretty ridiculous. The great quarterbacks, it doesn't really matter for them. That's what makes them great. With the amount of money he got, he should be able to find a way. So that is a problem. But I think they find a way to start him again. For some reason, I kind of feel that. But I think it's either way, no matter what happens, I think it's an overreaction to say that maybe off of one game. Off of one game here. But did like the way Jalen Hurts looked. Gives him the best chance right now. Scott Leone, Panthers need to move on from Teddy and let P.J. Walker start the rest of the season. I'm not thrilled with Teddy Bridgewater right now, a guy I like going into the year. I like the signing. I liked him early in the year very much. He was looking very good. But the last several weeks, he has not been good. I have not been happy with him. And then you bring up the debate, is he playing hurt or not? But he's out there, and he's not playing good. That's the bottom line. So now I'm starting to think that Teddy isn't the guy. I think Teddy could, he's worthy of a starting quarterback spot. But I always go back to when I talk quarterbacks and deciding if they're the guy or not. When it comes down to it, everyone's goal is to win a Super Bowl. It's one goal. Win the Dams. That's the one and only goal. Win the Super Bowl. And Teddy Bridgewater going to win a Super Bowl. But at the same time, you can't just snap your finger, come up with a quarterback that will. But you got to keep doing your homework and trying to find that guy. So Teddy might not be that guy to win in the Super Bowl. I do think he's a solid quarterback. I think the way you put this, though, I think this is an overreaction. I don't think P.J. Walker starting the rest of the season is going to accomplish anything. Teddy Bridgewater is better than P.J. Walker. It's not. We're not going to learn anything. We're not going to accomplish anything starting P.J. Walker. Teddy Bridgewater, you got some reps with the Saints last year. Before that, a lot of time missed, coming off a gruesome injury. Not a lot of reps. He had an injury a couple weeks ago too, but not a lot of reps in his new offense. New coaching staff, new scheme, new system, whatever. first-year quarterback in the system. So I think you'll learn more having Teddy finish it out. You still need to be, like a lot of teams, you still need to be doing your homework, trying to find that great quarterback. Don't just draft one just to draft one. Don't sign one just to sign one. Do your homework. If you find one that you really, really like, you got to take a shot at him because that guy's potential to bring you where you want to be. But yeah, I don't know if it's not gonna accomplish anything. Doing something like this. So interesting though, because he has not been playing well. Then from Jackson Rosenthal, the Falcons need to replace Matt Ryan in the offseason. And I'm going to go ahead and agree 100%. I think it's a fact. And I'm not saying like dump Matt Ryan, trade Matt Ryan. I'm not really saying any of that. I don't think Jackson is either here or anybody that believes this. You need to, like, you can't, kind of what we just talked about Teddy. You need to do your homework. You can't just be like, all right, we like this quarterback. He's got a lot of potential, kind of fits what we need in the future, what fits the era that we're in for the NFL. But we got Matt Ryan, so let's skip this. Let's get a different player. You can't be doing that. Now, if it's a quarterback, you can't just draft a quarterback just to draft one. Just a guy that, he's good. We're just desperate to replace Matt Ryan. I'm not suggesting they do that. I don't think the Falcons ever would. They just need to start finding a replacement. Because they're in I talked about a lot in the recap, week 14 takeaways and recap. They're in a tough spot because the defense is actually balling right now. Somehow they flipped. It was the offense carrying the coaching staff and the defense for so long, and now the defense is actually carrying the offense, very much. The offense can't do anything. Defense has been balling even in losses, and they're healthier than normal right now. They're playing better than ever. So, is this a thing? Is that it's hard to see the Falcons kind of going, continue to improve on defense, and they could. They're starting to figure something out, but they are healthier than normal. But I don't know. They got to get the offense going again. It can't have these. It can't get dry like this. It can't have these droughts like this. So and Matt Ryan really doesn't fit today's NFL. He even when he's playing like okay, he's still today's NFL quarterback that thrives needs to be able to move. Really needs to be able to escape pressure, move outside the pocket, get outside the pocket, being able to move out there, throw on the run, or make plays downfield with your legs. Matt Ryan can't do any of that. So even when he's good, he still doesn't have, that extra that today's quarterbacks are, they're taking over with. And on top of that, now he's not even playing good, even in the pocket where he's just a pocket passing quarterback. And he kind of cost him a game like the Chargers. So you need to start looking for a guy that fits and honestly, a guy that can be better pretty early on in his career. Because Matt Ryan's definitely declining right now. And it's a young defense that's playing pretty well. You got to try to match that because if you fail to even try or fail to do this, you're going to be going back where you started. You're going to all of a sudden the offense will be getting going, but the defense will be bad again or hurt again. You're going to be back and forth. You will never be able to get the both of them. So you need to act pretty quickly. Because it does take time. If you get a rookie quarterback in there, it does take time. I doubt they sign a veteran. But if you're gonna let Matt Ryan ride this out for a couple more years and then go find that guy, by the time the offense is ready, the defense is gonna be bad again. So it's literally what's gonna happen. They need to go out there and their goal needs to replace Matt Ryan. If you set that goal, you don't actually have to do it, but set that goal. And Matt Ryan could even start week 1 next year. It can't sit around and be like, do we replace Matt Ryan? Do we not? You need to make that goal for the better of almost now, but for the future as well. So that's a pretty good one to think about. Not the best game for Matt Ryan games recently, but definitely not against the Chargers there. Game I thought they should have won, really. Could have, and I think definitely should have. But that's going to wrap up Overreactions fresh off of Week 14. Actually got one more game left, though. Ravens-Browns. We'll have you covered throughout that game on Twitter there, so follow us. And that's a really big game there. Week 15 coming up. We'll have you covered for that as well. Please smash the like button, subscribe, turn notifications on. It'd be much appreciated. That's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.